Hello everyone, welcome back. So this is hopefully going to be a quick video. Um, Usually I give this on week 1 of lab when we meet face to face, but that didn't happen because of COVID and I forgot that it didn't happen. So here we go. These are my tips, tricks, and etiquette things for speech giving. Hopefully some of these tricks will help. If not, you have them in your toolbox. So let's get started. So on appearance, you want to be dressed. That should go without saying. But dress for the occasion. I always say dress for the occasion for whatever the occasion may be. I'm not saying dress up like you're going to a wedding. What I'm saying is put on pants, preferably not sweatpants, just so that you feel more official. Um, Put on a nice blouse or a nice shirt. Doesn't have to be a button up. Whatever looks nice that you have reserved for a date night or whatever. You're only gonna wear it for like 10 minutes max. So if you hang it up after you're done, you don't have to wash it. Whatever. Right. So that's appearance. If you choose to shoot your video in a way that it's not just from your shoulder up, your torso up, I mean, like you set up your camera a little ways away so that you can stand. That's actually better, in my opinion, just because it'll be more like the real life speech class, if you will. And then my suggestions there are don't pace, obviously. Plant your feet shoulder width apart and kind of split your weight between the 2 feet. Do not lean all on one foot. Do not lock your knees, and try not to lean on a wall or a table or whatever. Just some quick little tips. The next thing, lighting and location. So now that we're virtual, these things are important. So basically, we want to make sure that the light source isn't behind you, because that will result in backlighting, meaning the light will distort the image and you will become a shadow and we won't be able to see your face. And that's a problem, because then we can't see if you're making eye contact, we can't see your facial expressions, and facial expressions are a lot of communication. So that being said, you want to stand in front of as blank of a wall as you can find in your location. If you live in the dorms, talk to your CA or RA or whatever they're called. I know that in Neptune North there is a practice room or a music room downstairs that's a little bit more private that maybe you can use for this. Because the other thing you want to avoid is ambiance noises. I know that that's a little hard to do, especially if you live with other people. But if you have a roommate and you can ask them to either not be in the room or not make sound for the next 10-15 minutes, or likewise if you're living at home with your family, whatever. But if you have access to these more private rooms, if you will, it will help with cut down on all of that. So yeah, that is appearance, lighting, and location. So speaking outlines, they are different than your actual written out speech. A lot of you write out your speeches like an essay, and that's totally great. It's wonderful. It's actually helpful for my next tip. So if you don't write out your speech, and that's totally fine, if you are completely okay reading off of an outline and you know exactly what you're going to say from those points, just remember that your outline is single sentence bullet point kind of things, and your speech has to be a little bit more in depth than just bullet points, if you will. So if you do end up writing out your speech, wonderful. My suggestion to you is to practice your speech. Always practice your speech. Practicing doesn't make perfect. I hate that. Practice makes prepared and proficient. So you should practice. Give your speech at least 5 times before you turn it in for your homework assignment. Give it to your dog, your parents, your aunt, uncle, whoever. Make them a captive audience. I'm sure they'll love to hear it. So, once you've given your speech at least 5 times, and I do not mean 5 times in a row, I mean 5 times spread out in a couple of days, so that you have time to give the speech and be like, I didn't like how this went, so I'll tweak it. Okay? After about the 5th or 6th time, you're going to become pretty familiar with your speech. It's going to be like an old friend. And you won't need to be reading directly from the speech anymore as much. So once you've reached that point, I want you to find 3 things. A person you trust, a highlighter, and a printed version of your speech. So what you're going to do is you're going to hand that person you trust both the highlighter and the printed version of your speech. They're not going to judge you or grade you or whatever. They're just going to note things. So you're going to start giving your speech, and if there's a spot where you're like, oh, I don't know what comes next, pause. And you're going to do what famous people do on movie sets. You're going to go, line, and they're going to go, okay, so this is where they're going to highlight. They're going to highlight where you're like, ooh, I don't know what comes next. And then they're going to highlight what they're reading until you say, oh, I know what comes next. You say what they highlighted, and then you continue your speech. So, what that does, hopefully, in the end, is when you're done giving your speech, you will be handed back a piece of paper with kind of a skeleton note sketch out of the places where you're like, ooh, I don't know. So now you take those little highlights and you put them on a note card. And you give your speech, and then on those places where you're like, ooh, crap, I don't know what comes next, you glance down at your note card, you read it, then you continue with your speech. Other things to put on a note card, facts of any kind, and the citations that go with those facts. Citations are important. So yeah. Okay, cool. Those are note cards and speaking outline kind of things. This kind of goes along with talking speed. So talking speed is something that a lot of you have mentioned that you need practice on. So if you're not reading from anything, you will automatically talk slower. You will talk as if you are talking in a conversation. Because people read much faster, and especially if they're reading something that you're familiar with, you read much faster than you would talking normally. That being said, punctuation is important. Breathe at punctuation. If there's a comma, pause, breathe, continue. Look up at the camera, make eye contact. If there is an ending punctuation, definitely stop, breathe, make eye contact, move on, etc. That should help with your speaking time, like your speaking speed. Also, before you even start, take some nice deep cleansing breaths. Take a nice deep belly breath, count to, like, inhale for 10, hold for 2, exhale for 10, not just, like, actually count to 10 as you're exhaling. It really helps recenter your focus and kind of aligns your chi, if you will, to a more positive vibe. Also, don't think negatively. Think, I can do this. I will do this well. Even if it seems like you're lying to yourself, lie to yourself until you believe it. Trust me. Alright, that being said, the next part is credibility. So credibility, if you have firsthand experience in what you are talking about, you are automatically more credible than me because you lived through it. Also, if you have researched and actually read up on the topic that you've chosen, you are more credible than me because I have not researched that topic. Maybe I have, but maybe it's been a while and there's more updated stuff. Whatever, right? Also, I forgot to mention, speak loud enough to be heard and clearly enough to be understood. So, diction is important. Enunciate the vowels and the consonants. I know that sounds really stupid, but it's true. A lot of people, without even noticing, stare at people's mouths while they talk to help with understanding what they're hearing. I'm sure you've heard those videos where they say, are they saying banana or governor? And you're just hearing the sound clip and you're not seeing people's mouths. And you're like, I don't know what they're saying. I think they're saying both things. And then the next portion of the clip is a video of the person saying banana. And when you see their mouth say banana, you're like, oh, clearly that's not governor. It's facts. So, moving on. Talked about credibility. Citing your sources. So I made a video I don't know, maybe a month ago, about how to make sure your source is credible, and then how to avoid plagiarism, and in citing your sources correctly. So my suggestion to you is, while you're in the researching phase, this is what I do. I take a piece of paper for each source, and at the top of the source, I write type of source, whether that is website, journal, book, whatever. Type of source. If it is a website, link. If it is not a website, title of book, say it's a book. Title of book, author, publisher, publishing date, the place it was published, not just the publishing house, but like New York, or whatever. And then the credibility of the author, blah, 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 blah. The date it was published, the date I accessed it, etc., etc. Basically, if you look at what you need in order to cite your source in an MLA, APA, Chicago style, whatever format, the things you need for your works cited, bibliography, or reference page, that goes in my header of this page that I'm making. So I'm assuming that a lot of you are doing research online. So what mine looks like is link, web page name, website name, those are different. Article title, author or sponsoring company, author's credibility or sponsoring company's credibility, the publishing date, the date I accessed it, and then under that it says notes, bullet point. After that, you are left with a list of information from a source that you read, and the information of the source you got it from, so you don't have to go through your searching history, and you don't have to worry about, where did I get it from? You can look at your researching notes and say, I got it from there. And then you already have the according to who, that is this job title or however credible, in their such and such article published on whatever date, they stated blah 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 blah. Got it? Those are my tips, tricks, and etiquette things for speech giving. I hope this helps. See you in my next video, I guess.